moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. This is the first of two videos that will kind of be bookends here of what are the things the comic industry should start doing in order to get better, and what are the things the comic industry should stop doing to get better. And in many cases, they probably go hand in hand, but I'm going to try and at least go through a little list of a couple ideas on both ends that don't completely overlap. But we'll start with the positivity first, because why not? What should the comic industry start doing in order to improve? And I mean, the first kind of obvious thing is that it should actually think of itself and treat itself like an industry, meaning like a business with actual stakes and the need to progress, not to be kind of a fan fiction writers club, which is often how comics is. And what's interesting is that there are a number of people, I think, inside of comics. It's very unfair. And the hard part, and I've heard from a number of comic creators who are not on social media, do not engage in these kind of fights, don't show up in bleeding cool articles. They just kind of do their thing. And in many cases, they're annoyed by the fact that there are hundreds of videos by all kinds of people. Yellow Flash is putting up a video talking about some stupid thing about comics and what stupid thing people are doing in comics. And, the video may be correct. It probably is a stupid thing being done in comics. But there are smart people who are not doing those things going, when is the video going to come out that talks about, what the good thing? The fact that I'm just like, I have a lawyer and I review my contracts and I save my money and I don't go to, bars and get drunk and scream racist things at people, and I get my stuff in on time and I pursue marketing and I do research analysis. And when I go to a bookstore, I go by the manga section or the graphic novel section. I see what I can learn. Like, I'm doing all those things. Where's the video talking about how I'm a good person? Well, unfortunately, we don't, videos and comments don't get made for people who are competently doing their job correctly. And that is kind of a shame. I hold up a torch for you, good sirs and madams. It sounds like I'm talking about a bunch of prostitutes. Anyway, there are a lot of people who are in this comic industry and they treat it like an industry. They treat it like a job. I know people who wake up in the morning and they're working from home because they're a writer, or they're, and they don't wander into the room in their pajamas and start typing. They actually try and dress up like they're going to work, and they think about it like going to work. I'm not saying that the clothes is the only factor, but I think, what are some things that the industry can start doing? Level up, be professional. When you go to a con, clean up. When you're going to go present, do the hard things. Get a hotel, prepare like you're going to an event. This is what people do when they're in tech, when they're flying in to a conference. They're on board. They do this. They don't all say, hey, all of us are going to basically fly in, and then 6 of us are going to crash in the apartment of somebody who lives there. And I get it. There's not a lot of money in comics. I understand why this may be difficult. But you ever heard the expression, fake it till you make it? A lot of aspects about that are, hey, when you're going into something, even if you don't have the ability to fully be that person, even if you don't, have the money to, have the nice suit and the tie, get as close as you can. Fake it as hard, and then kind of mentally behave and act like you're in this more professional thing. A lot of the problems in comics come down to just stupidity, just basic dumb decisions, very amateur decisions that do not fit a business. Whether it's, and here's another one that will be off-putting. And granted, here's the other thing. Some of this advice, some of leveling up in comics are going to make people look weird at you because they're used to doing it in a very casual way. If you're doing work for somebody for a comic, get a contract. If you're small time and you don't want to afford a lawyer or whatever else, go online, download a contract template, try and make a working agreement that looks as close to a contract as possible. Even if you are this person who is, basically doing this crowdfunding simple thing on the side. I will tell you, for the Gemini Jump book that Larry and I are doing, available on Indiegogo. You could buy it now. If you absolutely hate Indiegogo, reach out to Larry. I'm sure we can work out a deal with you on the side. No problem. We don't care. The platform is not an ideology. You want to get the comic. But even for that thing, Larry and I had a lot of conversations around kind of legal structure, I provided paragraphs and things to him that clarified the ownership so there wouldn't be some surprise down the road. And we did not go all the distance to having a lawyer draft up formal agreements for this, because at the end of the day, it is his book. But I made sure to have my lawyer draft up a couple things for him that he could refer to in in the communication that made it clear that I didn't have a claim on the book. This sounds, you can do these things without spending a lot of money, and in some cases without spending any money. But the very act of trying to be professional and do it the right way gives everybody. It's better for everyone. That's one of the, if you imagine that you're in a professional business doing professional things, your work will get a little bit more professional. You'll treat it more seriously. If comics treated itself more seriously, you'd avoid a lot of these problems. So if the comic industry is going to help itself, act like it's an industry. As simple as that. I mean, you got to at least attempt to do it in a way that is proper. So that's one piece of advice. The other thing is, and this is harder, and these are more broad things for the group as a whole. There's this odd thing about comics where it tries to do two things at once that are both contradictory and bad ideas. So an example of this is there's a lot of old-fashioned approaches in comics where people do things in a way because that's the way it's always been done. That's a very common thing in comics. We're doing it that way because this is the way we've always done it. But then on top of that, they try and shove in cost-cutting measures, like, hey, let's have the artists do the inking as well, and let's kind of persuade them to do it digitally, which will save on some scans, and we'll talk about how much faster it is. But basically, try and cut corners. And when you try and cut corners, but you also try to maintain the status quo of how it's always been done, those two things are incongruous. They battle each other, and the end result becomes sloppier and dumber. I do believe that's a big reason why there's a lot of issues with comics today. It's because people have basically picked the worst of two options, and they're just they won't let go of what they believe they know in the past, and they also won't grab fully onto the future. It's a bad mix. There's a lot of industries that are ahead of comics in publishing. There's a lot of graphic design techniques and other areas where people are making innovation. And a good idea would be to, if you can't lead, imitate. And in this case, if it's not going to work to actually do things the right way, find another business that's making more money and seems to have its act together, and just steal it. Just copy those same ideas. That is absolutely where comics should be right now. Not inventing. I mean, well, sorry, it absolutely should be inventing new things. But if you're not capable of the invention, stop. Just full out stop. Don't. If you're not an inventor, don't try and invent. If you're not a car mechanic, don't try and get in and change the carburetor of your car. May sound funny, may sound like a fun afternoon. It is not. You're going to screw up your car. Just don't do it. Other advice: you got to remember the fun. You got to remember I'm screwing this up terribly, by the way, of giving positive and negative advice. It's all kind of swirling together. That's fine. We'll still do two videos anyway, because that's what we do. I've got content to fill. Anyway, have fun. This sounds cheesy, but there's, I think this simple advice might go to a lot of comic creators who are in it to prove a point, or in it to achieve some kind of message, or in it because they've always had this idea and they want to have some people call them stunning and brave, but don't forget the fun part. And if the fun part for you is trolling people, then I don't know what to tell you. You've gone astray. But remember that comics, at the end of the day, is a blank page. And you can put anything you want on that page, any world, any character, any environment, anything. It's truly up to you. You certainly have a budget, but that budget is constrained by imagination. The budget is constrained by whether you can afford Alex Ross or some guy in Argentina you've never met who has been only drawing comics for 6 months. That's what your budget is going to afford you. But what you put on that page, what the typewriter comes out with for the story, what the artist comes out with for the the design, that's completely up to you. You can do whatever you want, and you should have fun doing it. If you find yourself in this situation where you've got a complete blank slate to put anything you want on that slate and make it be amazing, why not go the distance and do something that's going to bring true joy to yourself? A lot of people, they look at comics and they go through this, and it's a job, it's a hassle, it's a pain. There's so many people I talk to where they're frustrated by their deadline, they're frustrated by the characters, they're frustrated by what their editor is saying, they're frustrated by the fact that everybody's stupid but them. I mean, I hear so many complaints, and the stories that come out the other end are joyless crap holes. They're not, that you could tell when the writer is enjoying themselves. Having fun, by the way, doesn't mean this super happy, everybody is getting along kind of, book where everybody's praising each other. Super happy, having fun is very different. Having fun is the creativity is coming out. People can tell you're actually immersed in the world you're telling, and you're not just checking some boxes. The other piece of advice, I guess, what can make the comic industry better? True transparency. So what do I mean by that? I mean, not a bunch of, random Facebook groups that are invite only, not a private Slack where people tell jokes about somebody getting their dick caught in a zipper. This is a real story. I'm talking about being able to say, here's what I'm working on. Here's the story I'm plotting. One of the reasons why comic books, so many stories feel like they're crushed together, why like there isn't coordination between the editor and the writers of different titles, like two comic books published by the same company will wind up doing kind of the same thing within the first, within a month. It's because nobody's talking to each other. The editors aren't talking, the creators aren't talking, nobody is talking to each other. And the result becomes a lot of overlap. A lot of writers are watching the same Netflix shows. They're watching the same stuff on streaming services. And as a result, they're coming up with many of the same comic ideas. They arrive at the same place at the same time. Do I think there's going to be a handful of Squid Game-like comics in about 6 months? Yes, there absolutely is going to be. There's going to be some twists. There's going to be the one guy who's greedy and the other guy who's not greedy. Absolutely, we're going to get all that. Talk more to each other. Transparency means, even within your own company, reach out, network, bounce ideas off of, try and build a network, and try and build a network off of creating value, not owning somebody you don't like, not politicking, not any of that. Comics is an industry where if people tried to actually get along well, and by the way, again, there are several people in comics that get along just fine and in a healthy way, not an unhealthy way. There are people who are working together and doing good work and not using it to gossip or fuck with somebody else, or doing it in a way that's actually very, very positive. Those people do exist. And guess what? They are more successful, just like the people who don't just work in their pajamas all day. Those people do tend to trend more successful because they're taking the whole thing more seriously. Anyway, a few ideas, nothing major. We'll do the negatives. I screwed up the concept though, so we'll do another part 2 to this, and it will be so much fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and thanks for listening.